Welcome back to This Film Not Rated, a branch of the Music City Drive-In Podcast Network, where we try to not rate movies that we have seen. The internet seems to think that there is an objective truth to film, and we're out there to prove them wrong by going through a series of questions in a gauntlet. And if we cannot get through those questions, then we just drop the gauntlet altogether and talk straight about the movie in question. This week, however, Eric is in the gauntlet. And Eric, what are we talking about today?
A murder mystery about the death of a murder mystery author that causes a murder mystery about a fan of murder mysteries. Knives Out.
Yes. Let's just go ahead and jump right into this. Eric, is Knives Out a good or bad movie?
Every time I've spoken to someone who has seen the movie, they've used positive adjectives to describe it.
People have used positive adjectives when you have spoken to them. You're not... Okay. Fair. What's the best scene in the movie?
There are a few staples that are traditional in certain murder mystery stories. A parlor scene is pretty common to your traditional Clue-esque story. Interviews with suspects. And the sort of encompassing reveal of the details of the death. This movie has a special feature in which the actor who plays Harlan Thrombey and comments on his work and Ana de Armas having to pull off the scene of the character's death and pull the emotion out of it and pull the cause out of it. And they have to turn an exposition scene into a scene that is central to the entire story of the movie. The answer to the mystery. So I feel like this scene is both... If you take it out, you don't have a full movie, I believe.
Now, if you take out that scene, I think this is what you're getting at. If you take out that scene, while you may have a similar story, you have a very different movie. So without that scene, you don't have this movie, I think is what you're getting at.
Yes. I would say that the actors have talked about how it was the most demanding on them, and it's so necessary to the story.
I actually don't think that... Unless you get that one person who's not paying attention, maybe.
I'll tell you what. Let's buzz me out here.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that is the best scene in the movie.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, I think my favorite scene in the movie is the interview sequence.
Okay.
Going like through the characters and Daniel Craig hitting the key to move them along.
Oh yes, no, like that is something I did notice this second time, because I haven't seen this movie since theaters, so watching it with fresh eyes for the first time, and then like just that was one of the first things that I noticed, is that whenever during the police interviews for the second round of police interviews, whenever someone was veering off topic, ding.
The other thing is, I'm not even sure if it's when people get off topic. I think it might be that was important.
The reason why I say off topic is that when they're interviewing Toni Collette's character, she tries to talk about her brand and the stuff that she's peddling, and he hits the key saying, "We're done here. Move, just move along." Okay,
I can see that.
I tried finding interviews today to find anything about this, and the most I got was this Thanksgiving dinner thing that they were doing, because I think this came out around Thanksgiving in 2019. But and then I watched this or listened to a breakdown of the eat shit scene.
It's edited bizarre. He points at more people than are actually in the room.
Yeah, and he breaks, like Rian Johnson brings this up. Chris Evans breaks like the eye line several times, but there are also so many people in the room that Rian Johnson was like, well, he's breaking the line, but also there's a lot of people in the room, so who's gonna notice? Which
I did.
Oh well, okay, you did. I didn't. You're a stickler for shit like that. But
I mean, it's a murder mystery that's reveling in the clues and the details. So
now a fun thing that I initially thought that I found out today was that line was changed day of shooting, because originally in the script he says "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you" to everyone, but then Rian Johnson thought, wait, I want this to be a PG-13 movie. I want it to be a one of those films that people can sit down with their families and just watch and not be restricted. But yeah, there's a lot of like details that I noticed this time around. A lot of setting up and paying off to like the smallest degree. Even the baseball that Ransom walks in with has like a visual line where it goes through that eventually leads to Mont Blanc picking up the baseball, throwing it so the dog can catch it, and seeing the piece of debris that the dog brought to him. It's so meticulously written and directed.
It is. It's really well drafted. It's surprising that it's an idea that was gestating in Rian Johnson's head and with his producer. And after The Last Jedi, they were in post-production and they were just thinking about what project was going to be the right next one. And they were like, I think it's time to do Knives Out. It seems like it was a really, not simple, but like surprisingly compact sort of production. I mean, they were in, I could be wrong about this, I think it was Massachusetts. They found like 2 locations for the house.
Yeah.
One of them is the exterior, one of them had the library and the interior. And the production designer worked on piecing that together. And the casting process was one of the biggest things, where gradually people folded in. Chris Evans begged to be in the movie, basically. There's all these fun little tidbits, like Jamie Lee Curtis and Don Johnson. They just felt like they could play a married couple because they knew each other forever. I tried to do a thing today, and I left it to the other thing, where on a legal pad, I put out clues to help me try and navigate the gauntlet that weren't my answers. That pulled out of all the special features. So some of the notes that I took were Riki Lindome. She's Michael Shannon's wife in the movie, and I've now watched it a third time, and she's barely there. She is lost in an ocean of everybody else. Yeah, even their son, being the actor from It, Jaden Martell. Yeah, he almost had as little presence as she did, but he ad-libbed a line calling the Marta, the lead actress, an anchor baby, and it was I think it was Michael Shannon in the crowd of people yelling. Initially, when they recorded that, he ad-libbed that, and he heard him, and he was like, Ryan, you gotta hear this line. And I wonder if that kid felt like he was about to get in trouble, but then that's why they redid the scene and let him have that line stick out.
Right.
So that he would play his thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, is everyone in that house is a piece of shit for the most part. No one, everyone tries to come off as what's the word I'm looking for? Well,
they're flawed, and they're exaggerated flawed so that they can be just shy of being clue pieces.
Yeah. But
it's the same thing in the costuming.
Yeah. But the line appears twice where it was Michael Shannon and some other person said, I think you should have been at the funeral, but I was outvoted. It feels like they were trying to say something to make her feel, to not make her feel.
You know what I didn't catch? I'm ashamed about this, but I didn't catch this till the third time. That Don Johnson's character says her family's from Paraguay, then says her family's from Uruguay. Then Chris Evans is the Brazilian nurse. Nobody in the house actually knows where where Marta and her family are from.
Yeah, but so It's weird. Like on first inspection, you might think that he's poking fun at one group or another, but literally, it's just this is one family, and despite political involvement, they're all just different levels of bad.
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of toxicity, and everything was about the toxicity and greed and other things that underlie these people, and what makes someone a good person, and driving their decisions and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so surprisingly thoughtful about it, because on the surface it's just a murder mystery laced with humor.
Yeah.
And I don't think it tries to be much deeper than that. I think its primary goal was to entertain an audience, and that's the line where something like that works, because you can feel that it's not attempting to make you think one thing or another. It's just trying to entertain you.
Right.
There's some thoughtfulness behind the scenes about how murder mysteries work, and how whether you're watching Columbo or whether you're watching Poirot or Sherlock Holmes, the detective is not the main character.
No.
That's the interesting thing about telling a murder mystery versus something else, and why you have the detective go somewhere else, is because you have to design an empathetic main character so that the detective can be more intelligent and be a step ahead of the audience.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about this. I think Marta's a pretty well-built character.
Mm-hmm. The house itself, like, I don't know if, like, this was intentional, but, like, it has this, like, I got kind of, like, German expressionism vibes from the house itself. I don't know.
Oh, it's a real house.
I'm sure.
It was laced with set dressing and stuff like that, but a lot of the house that they found, and I think that's why the camera lingers so much on so many details in there, is because they were basically like, oh my gosh, look what we found. Right. But the opening shot, the dogs on, like, the moors running away from the big mansion is so, like, yeah, and it was purposeful from Rian Johnson. He says he wanted to set people up, establish a traditional murder mystery house, murder mystery atmosphere and setting, set up a traditional introduction to clue-like characters in the library and the study being interviewed by the police, and then build the non-traditional story from that.
Right.
And everything borders this line between unrealistic and human, where, like, the lead character can't tell a lie without throwing up. It's one of those things that feels a little bit gimmicky.
Right.
But it's only used as, like, a sort of a setup, a reminder, and a payoff by that rule of 3.
Yeah.
And there's so many little things, like, they play the game Go, the game where they try and outline everything.
Yeah.
And, she can beat him in Go, and he's like, why can't I beat you? And you think that pays off in the sense that Chris Evans, she's able to outsmart Chris Evans because she beats him in Go more than Chris Evans beats him in Go.
Right.
But instead, that's also the detail that tips off Benoit Blanc that Chris Evans knew Marta was going to be the receiver of everything in the will. So it's sort of like you think you know why information's been delivered for you, and then there's 2 or 3 extra turns that sort of pushes it.
The way the story's told, and, like, you have, like, they basically tell you who the red herring is at the very beginning with the Marta, but like, also, like, if this movie came out in, like, 1970 or 1980, I feel like based on tropes, she would be the one who actually did it, and they kind of turned that on its head.
Yeah, they set up Ransom as, like, the black sheep of the family, as if he's going to be... I almost feel like this has vibes sort of like Scream.
Yeah, I can see that. Like,
he does turn out to be the killer, but it's the motivation is hidden. The why and the how is hidden. It's the stew of it all that comes out, And that's, I think, what's effective and surprising about it is everyone is ragging on The Last Jedi about subverting expectations, but then he embraced the perfect medium for setting and subverting expectations and leaning into that writing harder.
Right.
And it's so funny that, like, not 2 years after people are railing on him for doing this, do they embrace him wholly for doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's not like there's a whole lot of whodunits out there. Like, you have a couple of serious ones, like the Agatha Christie films.
The Murder, She Wrote is the TV show.
Yeah, but like Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile are taken fairly seriously. But then you have whodunit movies like Clue and Private Eyes that just make a joke out of the entire thing.
So anyway, the reason we're talking about this is because it's Noirvember. Yes. And a murder mystery feels true to line with that. Mm-hmm. Guillermo del Toro once said about film noir that the thing about film noir is not, and this is around the time of Nightmare Alley, it's not in the set dressing of the black and white, the fedora, the femme fatale smoking and all of that.
Right.
The film noir is in the ugliness of the underbelly of the American dream. Mm-hmm. That's the core that comes from that post-war paranoia of people coming back and feeling like they can't trust their country, that roles have changed, that they have to look over their shoulder.
Right.
And that the pursuit of some people. And so if I'm going to think about this on a deeper level, mm-hmm. it's fascinating to me that all these years after having like really old examples of serialized TV shows or novels or anything mm-hmm. that are all pulling at these pulpy ideas of a stand-up American citizen that has flaws mm-hmm. is being played or caught up in the web of someone else's machinations. Mm-hmm. And in modern day, you have the underdog that needs a leg up to get ahead, caught up in the machinations of the stand-up American citizens. Mm-hmm. And so there's like a reversal of what justice feels like. And noir never feels like it ends in justice. And so the fact that this does, it's a whole other thing. Oh, yeah. I would not call this movie noir. But
right.
As far as the tropes it plays on, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this was an intentional foreshadowing, but the first time that Christopher Plummer mentions ransom when they're in the study and they're playing Go, the camera's kind of turning slowly, and he mentions ransom as soon as the knife is in screen and it's crossing over his throat. I don't know if that was intentional foreshadowing or not, but it's there.
Well, it's funny because ransom doesn't cut his throat.
No.
It's that's the thing. This movie, this is the third time I've watched it, and no matter how much I try and hold on to the details of what the final, ultimate, full, unraveled plot is, I can't remember everything. And so far, every single time, the piece that has gotten me, and I might forget this later, or maybe I'll rewatch this, I don't know, is that it feels like they got him when the other nurse is alive. Okay? Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, she's alive. Oh, snap. And then I feel like he's going to ramp up and reveal when he's in the middle of ramping up and revealing that, like, yeah, I did it, but she's not dead, so I'm going to get out and I'm going to come after you. Mm-hmm. I am always caught off guard. I'm like, I remembered the second right when it happens, like, oh, and she throws up on him.
Right.
And I'm like, oh.
See, I'm kind of the reverse, where I haven't seen this movie in probably 3 years, and a lot of the details just kind of stuck in my head. Like, like normally after waiting this long to watch a movie and I haven't thought about it for a while, a lot of details leave, and like I'll go like, oh, I forgot about that. I forgot, like, this one's just like, no, like I remember that. I remember that. The one thing that I forgot about was who saw Ransom switching out the morphine bottles the second time, and like that whole situation. Like I forgot who that was. I still remember that scene though. I just forgot who was in the scene.
I have so much surprising fun with this. I bought this not sure if rewatching it was going to have the same return on enjoyability.
Yeah, same.
And honestly, the thing that's so great about this to me is the first time you watch it, you're trying to solve the mystery.
Right.
And so all of the details start to fritter away in your head as you get down to what feels like the important pieces are. Mm-hmm. So when you watch it again, and you get to enjoy Toni Collette and Jamie Lee Curtis and all of these other pieces, you know what their role is. Mm-hmm. They're just a part of the atmosphere of things.
Yeah.
And when I'm not trying to solve the mystery, so much more of their actions has a different meaning. And it sinks in differently. And then watching it a third time, it's just surprising to me how well the pacing keeps up, how much of a ride it feels like. So I would definitely go back to watch it again, just because there is no other whodunit with this many classic staples of that mood, okay, that takes itself seriously, that, you know, is this new or modern? You know, like, there's just... Yeah. There are things like this, but there is nothing quite like this.
Yeah, the closest thing tone-wise to this would be the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes films. Closest thing in tone that I could think of. But even that...
yeah. Nobody sits down in a parlor scene or does that. Maybe the first one. But, you know, the second one becomes this big bombastic, we have to stop the artillery thing and do all that. Like, you know, it's... You know, like, I want to like the Poirot stuff, but I like the BBC show a lot better than I like the Kenneth Branagh movie.
Yeah.
That I've seen. So, I'm looking forward to Glass Onion.
Yeah. Which,
I hope we'll get to talk about that more, and I hope we'll get to talk about that positively.
Yeah. Apparently Daniel Craig is very on board for doing more stuff with this character. Like, and I think in a recent interview he said there's currently no limit on the number of movies that he would make as this character. So there's something about this just clicks with him.
It's like you could explore it in any number of different sort of venues and avenues. I mean, like, you know,
and it's one of those like a Hercule Poirot, where as long as you have that one central character, you can make any kind of movie that you want with it, so long as it falls into that mystery thing. Which is fine. Like that, I think that's what the appeal of murder mystery is you get to follow this one character that you really like through the series of ever unwinding and ever more confusing events until finally you have that payoff at the end with the parlor scene, which you get in a lot of murder mystery stuff. Like you have like you said before with Columbo, like every one of those episodes ends in a parlor scene, but also an anime detective. Shows like with Case Closed or, you know, Detective Conan is what it's called in Japan. Those always end on a parlor scene, and they follow a lot of tropes in murder mystery. So it's like one of those tried and true genres that people keep coming back to, kind of like with horror.
That has never quite had its overdone heyday the same way, you know, like superhero movies or westerns get or something like that. Thank you all for listening. Again, we are This Film Not Rated, a branch of the Music City Drive-In Podcast Network. I'm Eric.
And I am Curtis. You can follow me on Twitter at 90sgamer407 and on Twitch if I ever start streaming again at Merrick_tainment.
And you can follow me at High Contrast FLM and soon from YouTube at High-Contrast. Because they're doing that handle thing.
Right.
Awesome, I got that one. I got that handle, so...
I still need to get one for my other channel if I ever decide to do more anime shit with it. But yeah.